Okay.
Record. There we go. Hello. There he is. Namo
Hello.
Mitobutsu.
Namo Mitobutsu.
Formally greet you now.
Yeah, good to see you again.
Good to see you as well. So
I was wondering today or this evening, what should we discuss? And I was thinking, I don't really have anything planned. So should we make it just a
clearing the
Dharma
channels
discussion kind of,
Dharma
let's talk about whatever comes up kind of
I do have a question,
perhaps. So would be good.
I do have a question about like thinking of people in this life that don't that explore Jodo Shinshu, and maybe even really super explore it for a lot of years, and then just get to the point where they just leave or they don't. Like, what is the teaching about that? What is the teaching about if, like, how does that, what is the teaching? Is it just that there's, sometimes that the things haven't ripened enough, or like, is there a specific teaching about that what, people are going to leave, here's the things to keep in mind, you know what I mean? Is there, in Renyo's writings, or in Shinran's writings, or in anybody else's writings who was an authentic teacher, is there anything about that in kind of the authentic teaching, specifically addressing situations like, we had the other year with, it was the last year, I think, there was a pretty major person that was running left, and I know the whole thing of that people think they have Shinjin and then they don't, type of thing, or believe they do and they don't, or what have you, and they won't have had Shinjin in the first place. But I mean, just what is there some specific writings, teachings about those situations? Do you see what I mean? That just kind of addresses like, the karma hasn't ripened, or do you see what I'm saying? For Shinjin not arising, like there's a lot of teachings about Shinjin arising, but when it doesn't, what is the situation there? Do you see what I mean? I'm sure there must have been followers in Shinran's time and Renyo's time even that were like, why do these people leave? What's the deal? What's going on here? Why does it just arise with, in some people and it doesn't arise in others? What's the deal? How does that work? Do you see what I mean?
Right. I do. Well, I think there are a lot of different layers and levels and dimensions to which this issue could be addressed, right? So, but I do think so. One example that comes to mind, of course, is Shinran Shonin, when he had taught, personally taught and expounded the Nimbutsu teaching in Kanto, Eastern Japan, present-day Tokyo region. Actually, it's Ibaraki Prefecture, I believe. But and the people there had rejoiced and embraced it, and said we're now following the Nimbutsu. And then he left, and they all started going and listening to other teachers saying other things, and you have to do good things in order to be born in the Pure Land, and all of these different divergences. Like in Tawny Show, it talks about lamenting the divergences. Well, this was the divergences that are being lamented in Tanisho are not just things that he was thinking up. These are actual, wrong ideas that people had about, the Jodo Shinshu teaching, which at the time was just, Honen Shonin's teaching. I mean, Shinran never claimed to be founding a new sect of Buddhism. He just taught faithfully what his teacher, his Dharma master Honen Shonin had taught as he had received it. So these people, started listening to these divergences and having all these, following other ideas. And Shinran said in one case, it seems that these people, they all declared that they had, attained, that their Shinjin was settled, but it turns out that that's completely not the case. They were not settled at all. So that's an example of one case where it seemed that people had attained some degree of settled Shinjin and faith, and then they went to some other idea, and Shinran had also presumably supposed that they were in fact dedicated to the true Nimbutsu teaching. And he was disappointed because they weren't, apparently. They decided that some other idea was better, and so that's one thing. Now that's, of course, looking at it within our tradition. Now, when I talk about different dimensions to this question, one thing, of course, you can say is that if someone comes to Jodo Shinshu or any Buddhist teaching and examines it and decides, well, this is not for me, then I don't think it's a good idea for that person to continue to persevere in a teaching that's not working for them. In that case, I don't think there's any blame for someone who it's just not, it's not meeting their spiritual, it's not meeting where they are at spiritually in their particular journey, right? And now Jodo Shinshu, of course, is a teaching for everyone. If properly understood and properly taught and properly, approached, it meets everyone where they are. But we know, you and I, how difficult it is to find it being properly taught, properly understood, properly, even by people who, claim to be teachers and so on of Jodo Shinshu. I mean, it's very hard to get at the genuine article, so to speak, in this late age of Mappo. So, that being the case, I mean, people are going to leave with an insufficient idea of what Jodo Shinshu is. And it's been my observation that typically the people who come and go haven't found for themselves what is truly of value in the tradition, so to speak, in Jodo Shinshu teaching. They haven't really come to, the core of Jodo Shinshu, which is Shinjin, and when Shinran is talking about the ocean of the vow, and in the Buddha mind, Amida's mind being Shinjin, and so on, and all of these things, they don't get that far, or they don't really get there. And so I think a lot of people end up leaving because they just think it's too much like Christianity or something. Superficially for them, it's like, a sort of dualistic religion, and they decide, well, I'm going to try some other kind of Buddhism, or I'm going to leave Buddhism altogether. So that's one aspect of looking at it. Is I really don't think people should be coerced into or told that you need to follow this religion or else you're going to some bad place, that kind of thing. It's never part of what Buddhism is about, right? So we Shakyamuni always just let people come and go freely, come and hear the Dharma. And if they weren't at a point where they were able to accept it or benefit from it, then he let them go. And there was no control or attempt to mind control, kind of like the way cults and other religions sometimes do, to try to keep people inside the and we saw in Shinran Shonin the same idea. Some person left and they were like, well, shouldn't we make him return the scriptures that he took and all this stuff? And Shinran said, well, these the sutras, they're not mine, and they will be of benefit to whoever they come to. So let him take them. There's no so in that sense, that's of course one aspect, right? The practical aspect. Now, so I've been rambling on. Any thoughts about that, or about?
Yeah, I guess which makes it that makes it makes Jodo Shinshu a bit different, because if it's kind of applied correctly, or people have the right sort of Shinshu attitude, as it were, or approach to things, it doesn't really people don't get upset about it. You shouldn't really get upset if somebody doesn't embrace this. It shouldn't make you feel upset. It shouldn't make you feel insecure. It's, you know what I mean?
Right.
There's not this,
absolutely not.
Oh, you're you're
abandoning the faith.
Exactly. And you're going to suffer. There's none of that. Like you're going to be going to hell, or you're going to, do you know what I mean? It's not, well, we're Buddhists, so yeah. People are suffering all the time.
Scott, hold on. I think the Wi-Fi connection here might be cutting out. Let me
all right, hold on.
Let me try to
okay. I'll go off camera for a second.
Let me try the data, because I think that worked last time, and we'll see how that works. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. Is it better now? I've gone off camera. Can you hear me?
I can. It's showing that your connection is low, so I don't know what that would mean. If maybe you're not
I'm not. Yeah,
close to the router, or
yeah, I probably need to switch to the extender. Is the problem, I think. One sec. Let me.
But hold that thought.
Yeah. I'll see if I can do it without there being an issue. One sec. Bear with me a sec. Grab something. Sorry about this. I've got to enter the password. I've never connected this to the extender.
Oh, okay. No worries. We can always cut this out of the final edit. While you're connecting, I will see if I can find a passage that that came to mind. All right, it looks like you're connected.
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Yes. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sorry
that
about
looks very clear, the image. So this may be
Yes,
a
I was
good
in the wrong.
connection.
Yeah, I wasn't in the extender. I've never connected this machine to the extender Wi-Fi before, so I'm in a different part of the house, obviously, than I normally am. So, anyway, but
Right. Well, we are back after
we're back
the brief intermission.
after the brief early intermission. Yes. So yeah, so I was saying like, there's not any of that people getting upset because people are leaving or worried for their, their eternal soul or insecure. They shouldn't. This is what well, they shouldn't be. If they have the proper Shinshu attitude, I don't think they should be upset like that. Because because well, for obvious reasons, we don't really worry about people's eternal soul. It's it's a different. We have a different take on
Yeah.
and such things. Buddha nature. We don't worry about someone's Buddha nature. It's not the exact. It's not the same thing as the soul at all. But
Right.
anyway, we don't. It's just a different. Just I guess that's from on the there's a I mean, yes, if people don't become enlightened by some means, yes, we're going to keep suffering that. But like as Buddhists, we kind of it's sort of well, yeah, that's what we've been doing over and over again. So it's not like it's
right.
this horrible crushing thing like it's that somebody's left now and anyway, so
yeah,
I think it's just a different attitude about those things.
Yeah. Now, of course, we are
I think
urged. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, but like there's a difference. If somebody leaves, I imagine if somebody leaves the Buddhist, the like a self-powered Buddhist path, there's kind of a different take on why they left in some way than why. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, that's what I'm trying to get at. What is the sort of teaching about, the karmic situation there as to why they left, or the explanation of why people would come and go, like that, or did they, or is there not anything?
The explanation, yes, I can give you that one. Because Shinran says that pretty much perfectly.
The
Well, I do want to bring up too, like speaking of the attitude of Buddhism, the
yeah,
broad
yeah.
and generous attitude of Buddhism is, there was even, Shakyamuni was one of the things he had to consider, was that someone from a different non-Buddhist tradition wanted to sort of intern, as it were, as a Buddhist, a follower in Shakyamuni's tradition. And there were some monks who were saying, well, no, we shouldn't let people from these heretical, sects into your into your sangha. But Shakyamuni said, well, no, let them in and let them see what we're all about. And it may be that they decide that what I am teaching is superior and better and works, or they may go back. But in either way, they will have benefited.
Yeah.
No, and we will be benefiting them. So
exactly.
That is the basic, I think, the basic attitude, and that's why in Jodo, true Jodo Shinshu, of course, we welcome everyone. If someone who is a Christian wants to learn about Jodo Shinshu and chant, Shoshinge with everyone, great. That's wonderful. And if they decide to, become a Jodo Shinshu Buddhist, and that's what they truly feel is best for them, that's also wonderful, and we welcome that. If they go back and continue to practice their religion faithfully in the way that is suitable to their conscience, that's also, it's a total win-win, and maybe that person will pick up something valuable from their experience with our tradition, Jodo Shinshu. They may come to a better awareness of compassion, or whatever little thing. I mean, there will be some communication, some dialogue, some something that will be mutually beneficial, right? So that's the basic Shakyamuni's perspective on this issue. Now, as to the question of why people come and go, I have to read you this from Shinran's letter. And he says, okay, he says, you have been explaining to people that one attains birth through the Tathagata's working. It is in no way otherwise. What I have been saying to all of you for many years past has not changed. Simply achieve your birth, firmly avoiding all scholarly debate. Side note, I believe that's one of the rules of Shaku Brothers, if I recall correctly. No debates.
No debates, exactly.
And then, okay, and Shinran continues. I recall hearing the late Master Honen say, persons of the Pure Land tradition attain birth in the Pure Land by becoming their foolish selves. Moreover, I remember him smile and say, as he watched humble people of no intellectual pretensions coming to visit him, without doubt their birth is settled. And I heard him say after a visit by a man brilliant in letters and debating, I really wonder about his birth. To this day, these things come to mind. Each of you should attain your birth without being misled by people and without faltering in Shinjin. However, the practicer in whom Shinjin has not become settled will continue to drift even without being misled by anyone, for he does not abide among the truly settled. Please relay what I have written here to the others. Respectfully, Buno 1260, 11th month, 13th day, Zinshin, which is another name Shinran used, written at the age of 88. So he was quite advanced in years when he wrote this particular letter. And, that's what he says here is people who do not have and it is a bit like it's very clear cut what he's saying here. People who do not come to the experience of Shinjin, whose Shinjin is not settled, Shinjin Ketsujo in Japanese, the decisive settling of Shinjin, tend to, well, continue to drift, as Shinran puts it. They tend to come and go and move on. And that's because in Jodo Shinshu, Shinjin is the whole thing. It's all about Shinjin. So if you miss that, you've missed the whole point, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
as
exactly.
we're always being reminded, right, by many people, Shinjin is the
it's
the
it's the
pivotal.
clearest. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, if
but,
you're receiving, if you're getting the authentic transmission, there's no question as to what the important focus of Jodo Shinshu.
Right.
It's just very, 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 very clear. And I forgot to mention, it's not really the elephant in the room. I didn't do it on purpose, but the elephant in the room is I've been a Jodo Shinshu drifter. I meant to say this earlier. Like I've come in and out, of Jodo Shinshu over the past, since the mid noughties, mid 2000s, and I've done that. So this is partly, I'm talking about myself as well, not just some,
a personal question,
not just these,
right?
Yeah, not just, I'm not trying to pose some, question about other people, because that's a big part of that's a big part of Jodo Shinshu too, is that it's all about it. In a sense, you don't really that behavior. We look at our own,
Yeah.
We don't, or we shouldn't be judging other people. I'm getting the message too of unstable internet, even though I've switched.
Really?
You want to try switching back to your Wi-Fi?
Yeah, let me try that just to see, because it may be faster than what I'm on. Let me try that really quick.
Yeah. Sorry about this, folks. Anybody watching this recording later on had a lot of technical difficulties.
Okay, let's see how that goes. I should be connected now to Wi-Fi.
Okay,
so we'll see
how that goes.
Okay.
So in a sense, it's all about it's very much when it comes to how someone behaves, we look at our own behavior, look at our own life, look at we don't,
right, yeah,
and then at some point in Shinjin, we don't really reflect on our own. We realize, that Amita's doing that and done that and knows exactly how to deal with our karmic situation. So we don't, but like, do you know what I'm saying? Like it's a different, it's very, who is the evil person? The evil person is me, not, spiritually speaking. Not anybody else. I'm not supposed to be, so in that sense, like, so that's why I'm bringing that in here, is that I'm not just asking some, and I don't, and I was on my mind from the beginning. Actually, I just, for some reason, did bring that in there to give myself as an example of the same, the thing, the topic that I've chosen for this discussion. So I have, questions about that, about myself. There's personal, interest in the question I had, as well as just in general for Jodo Shinshu.
Yeah.
What's the teaching about it? So that was there's a key thing in there in that passage. Can I just raise this really quick? Becoming our foolish selves. We're born. That passage you read ends with that. We're born in the Pure Land by becoming none other than our foolish selves. I think that's a tough one. for people
it's
to
a
do.
koan. It's like a koan if you
Yeah,
it's a tough nut to crack, let's say.
yeah, and just to think about, I think for people to get their heads around, like that's really accepting,
Mm,
yourself. And obviously that
hmm
happens in Shinjin, so it's Amida that kind of brings you into
Yeah,
that
yeah,
becoming
right.
your none other than your foolish self, that attitude, that change, that turning of heart mind,
Yeah,
that happens. Um,
yeah.
but
Very
that's a
important point.
yeah, but like really seeing yourself as the foolish beings that we are. That
Yeah,
side of it alone, I think, is tough. Let
yeah.
alone the whole okay is there's nothing I can do. Mita's gonna has done it all. There's nothing
Mm,
for me to do. That part of it, and then getting your head around that. But just that the side of it of yeah, like the degree to which you really are accepting that you're a foolish being.
mm.
I think that's a tough, that's a jagged little pill, as
Yeah.
to, to quote Alanis. Yeah.
Mhm.
So, yeah. Um,
Yeah. And becoming the interesting part of it is, born in the Pure Land by becoming their their foolish self, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. So not only you're accepting it, you're really you're
Yeah.
becoming that. You are you. That is what you are.
Mm. But
But anyway,
that awareness, that twofold awareness comes, as you pointed out so importantly, comes through the working of Amida, of other power on us, right?
mhm,
It's not
mhm.
a it's not a self-powered awareness, but the awareness of ourselves as we've talked before in the past, as evil beings, as the object of Amida's compassion, as Bombu, foolish, unenlightened beings. That awareness, comes through encountering Amida's light and the true in hearing the name, which is of course what Shinjin is, right? So it is part of the working of Amida's mind, in our mind stream, so to speak.
Yeah,
Very important point.
exactly.
And I
So
do think too, Rinyo, there's a quote in the collected sayings and deeds of Rinyo Shonin where someone says, um, it's talking about, trying to or wanting to have your family members also be Jodo Shinshu followers, and he says, well, it's wonderful if that happens, but if not, you shouldn't like be worried about it, and it's since it ultimately is a personal teaching, it's not like you have to be all distressed that people or your relatives are not also believers of Shinji. So I always thought that was a really um you know because what it's saying is you really shouldn't have to worry too much about what other people's appraisal is. You're not, because you have found in this path that which is essential for your spiritual um liberation, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
you don't have to go to some third party doesn't have to approve it for you. You don't need like some external, it's like it's a matter between you and Amida, as the late Zekin Inagaki once said, which I think is very important too. Now, of course, it's wonderful that we have a sangha and people who are fellow travelers on the path and so on, but
Yeah, it's so it's kind of kind of each of kind of well, why don't we go off video if you can hear me? I'm gonna stop my video.
Okay, should I try that too? Just
Yeah, yeah. Why don't we stop video for a bit?
let's try
It's
that and
just
see if it helps.
see if that just helps. At least we can hear each other without, yeah, and then we won't
Okay,
be freezing. And yeah, how's
loud
that?
and clear.
Yeah,
Very good.
okay, good, good. So yeah, it seems like it's kind of the teaching or the attitude about it is don't worry about it. Really,
Mm,
it's up to Amida. It's up to
right.
Amida and
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
that person's karmic situation. That's the
Yeah,
impression I get from you
exactly.
know
And also, Amida can work through all kinds of different things. So,
yeah
that person may be at a point where, they are still um look, they still need to practice Zen or something, or maybe they're not even into Buddhism. Maybe they are, just trying to live a moral life according to the
mm,
tenets of Christianity or some other religion, like
mm,
Islam or whatever, and that's where that person is. So now that's not to say that we don't always, want and encourage and want people to see what and understand if they truly have the urge and the um how to say the occasion, we always want to share the joy of the Jodo Shinshu teaching with anyone who is happy to listen, right?
yeah
but but it's ultimately not our doing. It's
yeah
Amida's doing.
exactly
So, and that's why Shinron, always says, I don't have any disciples.
exactly.
Yeah.
That was exactly what I was thinking of. That's what it
Yeah.
comes through, and yeah, it's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
No, yeah, that's what I wanted to say. So,
yeah. I have no
it's
followers.
looking, yeah,
Yeah.
where, the working meets, as we've seen in the previous episode, we talked about how um, Amida's guidance of all beings is non-exclusive, and the Buddha is literally going step by step with every single person and every single being,
Yeah.
and guiding them in whatever way that is happening. We can't necessarily see that, but there's all kinds of ways in which people are being led and guided,
Yeah.
so we can just embrace that wonderful truth. And if we have been fortunate enough to truly encounter the authentic Jodo Shinshu teaching,
Hmm.
and of Nimbutsu and Shinjin, and the wondrous working of the vow, then that should be something that we can rejoice about, right, for ourselves. And
Yeah.
of course, that joy, naturally, we want to, you know, share that with others. And so, yeah. So, in terms of, I think part of your question is like, is there any karmic, you know, uh, dangers to leaving Jodo Shinshu or something like that? Is that part of
No,
your question at all?
no,
Or
no, 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 not really. No, not at all. No, it's not. No, there's not. You know, I mean, it's good for. I think it's good for us to point out there isn't. Like, that'd be the only thing is that's a big difference, I suppose. You know,
mm,
is
yeah.
um, you know, like we don't. Yeah, we're
Now,
not going to be freaked out that
Right.
They
There's
go,
no
oh,
judgment.
you're falling into terrible danger. That happened to me once, actually, when I was in Trushin Buddhism. I raised one question I raised. One of the members came back and was like, oh, you're putting yourself in a perilous, position asking these questions, asking this kind of question. And in your thoughts, in your mindset state, it's, you know what I mean? I was like, okay. So how are you supposed to ask questions?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
So that's obviously wasn't the Jodo Shinshu approach that I got from that particular person.
Right. Well, the thing about that group is there were a lot of people from primarily from non-Shinshu backgrounds.
Yes.
So you never quite knew what you were getting, was my experience.
True. Which is why Paul had to always step in. So, was always stepping in and saying, oh, hang on.
Yeah, and he did, I think, do his best according to his understanding. So,
he did.
But yeah, it was quite the motley crew, let's say.
True. But again, I always give that disclaimer that I am grateful for past, things that, at least I encountered the Jodo Shinshu teaching, from past.
Oh yeah,
things
absolutely.
Involved with some facsimile of the Buddhist of the Shin Buddhist teaching came through, so that I was eventually able to find, the authentic teaching, anyway, but yeah, so it just seems like it's a different, it's a very different attitude to, especially other about it. But as far as I think it's similar. I think other Buddhist sects are probably similar. They don't really mind too much, unless they're like a cult or something, unless they've turned
right.
They don't really mind if people leave. People just come and go. That's just, it's part of the teaching. It's part of the Buddhist teaching of the permanent.
Right. Yeah, or they shouldn't mind.
They shouldn't.
Now, of course, they are people. So, and people tend to be,
True.
But it's totally. And I will say just one comment on a certain, let's say, high profile person who left Shinshu in the last year. I think it was last year. I sort of always did wonder, because a lot of that person, often wrote a lot of poetry and hymns and that sort of thing. And I always did think that the content seemed to me much more Christian than Buddhist in tone. And so I kind of wasn't entirely surprised when that person ended up embracing a Christian faith, because it kind of seemed to me that that's where they were finding spiritual sustenance anyway, kind of. So it wasn't a huge shock or surprise to me, at least,
I'd agree. I'd agree with that looking back. It wasn't a huge surprise to me just in general, just because of kind of, other things that I observed over the years. But as I say, I think it did surprise. I think it did shock a lot of people. It was a very, it was a big, kind of deal for lots of people, just, especially people that were, strongly invested in that group, in that sangha, and then he deleted the entire thing, summarily.
Right. Yeah.
That was not, that was not cool as far as I'm concerned. But the thing I have to say is also what I'm grateful to for that group is they this is just a kind of a side note. They
Mhm.
also made available the writings through various means, people's various websites and things, so that people could read the
Yeah,
teachings
yeah.
themselves. Like they made the, they made, especially this person we're talking about that left. They
Mhm.
have all kinds of websites and web pages and things. And they still have it up, which is great, which I think is
Right.
really generous of them. And, um, um, so that's another thing for past groups that I've been involved with that I'm, you know,
Mm.
is good is they have, made the teaching available, the actual
Mhm.
writings available to them, to, to,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? To people,
Oh,
to access.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
It's just
I
the
agree.
commentaries that sometimes can be a bit,
Right.
yeah, need to be
Yeah.
need to be carefully evaluated
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah,
individually
but
and accordingly. So, but
right. And
yeah,
there's
but
also the problem where someone enters, is, and this is where we have to be very careful about pointing out who and who doesn't
yeah,
supposedly have
yeah,
Shinjin. Um, because we don't know, for one thing.
yeah,
you know,
exactly,
and
exactly.
and for another, um, if you're wrong about that, it
Yeah,
becomes that person becomes put under a pressure
yeah,
of being a person of Shinjin, and
yeah.
everybody is saying they are a person who has attained this,
Hmm.
in Jodo Shinshu, this very important spiritual milestone,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Yep.
And now, if they start to doubt or have questions, they have to suppress that,
Yeah.
or else come out and admit, well, maybe it wasn't Shinjin after all. And
Yeah.
so it's better to be open,
Yeah.
like you have been, and just say, well, I had these experiences, but here's where I am today,
Exactly.
and this is the journey that's led me here. And it's better to be open and honest about where you are, spiritually speaking, and sometimes this happens in other religions too, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of high profile cases in Christianity where pastors of huge churches just up and leave and
Yep.
can't
Yeah.
can't do it anymore because they know who they are,
Yeah.
but the image that is being promoted to the people who come every Sunday
Yep.
is
Exactly.
not who they are. And finally, that tension becomes too, people can't handle that so there
Hmm.
is a breaking point, right, where you
Hmm.
just have to say, this is not who I am. And so, ideally, in Jodo Shinshu, in our tradition, um we don't, we do have, of course, people who are ordained to, perform certain dharma ceremonies and so on, and that's very, an important part of the tradition. But we're all on the same level, spiritually speaking, and we should be completely open and uh honest about, and that's why Rinyo Shonin says, speak up and say what's on
Hmm.
your mind,
Hmm.
ask questions, voice those doubts, and he would always be frustrated when people would just clam up and be quiet. You can't, openness is really, really key. And sometimes in some, especially with religion, uh, you know, how to put it, pressure and expectations and hierarchies
Yep.
have a way of emerging
Yeah, exactly.
from from the equal. So, yeah.
And the thing is, with people being open, it's it's a challenge. It's challenging. You actually, they have to, if people are really open about their questions, you know that you do you know what I mean? You can't just,
Right.
and so I think often it's easier, and I think there's subtle ways where that openness gets shut down, either directly or indirectly.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
people,
one way
because
is
if
that,
people really ask their real questions and really express their real doubts, it becomes for certain situations that becomes a threat, because maybe the leadership isn't, the person who's supposed to be the teacher or the priest or the
yeah,
leader can't address the question effectively,
right.
because they're maybe not, or they can't admit that they can't, and have to say, well, maybe we need to talk about this. They can't admit.
Oh, yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That they don't know, and just kind of come back to it, or, well, let's keep
Right.
this, let's keep this discussion going. You know what I mean, or whatever. Like there's like, do you see what I'm saying? When people are really open.
Oh, totally. I mean,
And it
I
also,
think
there's the threat
I've
is
been
also
there
that it
for
might
sure.
encourage other people to go, oh, well, I think that, and speak up about, I have that doubt, so the more and
Yeah.
more people have this, and you're like, I think you know, for certain
Yeah.
situations that becomes a threat. Whereas in genuine Jodo Shinshu, I wouldn't think that would be, because we're all bumble.
No.
So I think it's quite easy for a teacher to say, you know what, I don't have, do you know what I mean? Or someone like yourself who I'm discussing with. How many times have I asked a question? You said, you know what, I don't think I'm qualified to.
Yeah, I say it all the time.
Yeah, you say it
we
all.
have
Yeah,
to.
you say, you know what, I don't really know the answer to
Let's
that.
see what.
Yeah, let's see what
Yeah, and I
Kobai
always like to
Sensei
make
said.
clear that I'm not, the final authority.
Exactly.
I am sharing my understanding of Jodo
Yeah.
Shinshu
Yeah.
teaching as I have received it from many other
Exactly.
teachers and good friends on the path. And so, that's, I'm not, the one and only true teacher of Jodo Shinshu or anything like that. I'm just, a fellow traveler.
Yeah. No, exactly. But I'm just saying, that's an example of, to me, that's how an authentic Jodo Shinshu
should be
happening. The true, authentic Jodo Shinshu Sangha and transmission of the Dharma should be happening. Dharma dialogue should be happening. There isn't no fear of any questions, of any doubts, of anything that, whatever it is, whatever the barrier, and not afraid to admit, well, you know what, I don't have an answer to that. We'll have to look into that, or we'll have to consult maybe another teacher, or or someone else to get the answer. Well, let's look at the writings, or but it's not, there isn't a trying to shut that, you know what I mean, shut that person down in both subtle and not so subtle ways.
Exactly. And that's another problem that comes up when you have these walled off, these organizations that wall themselves off from the broader Shinshu community. Like in Nishi Honganji and all the authentic Jodo Shinshu schools, we often have like teachers from other schools come to our temples to teach, like we'll have a guest teacher from Shinshu Takadaha, which is another tradition of Jodo Shinshu, or Higashi Honganji. It's a total, and vice versa. Teachers from from Nishi Honganji go and do teaching and Dharma forms and it's called
That's cool.
Hoakai in Japanese, which means Dharma talk. Um, you know, how to put it? Dharma talk event, Dharma
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
festival, where teachers will come and give Dharma talks at a temple. And so yeah, there's this total exchange and broad exchange of viewpoints and understandings, so there's an enrichment that comes from that when you end up with these organizations that wall themselves off and become
yeah,
little castles,
yeah, yeah.
um, then that becomes a problem too, right?
It does. It does. That's really cool. I didn't know that about the Honganji, broader sense of the Honganji, that all the different sort of, you know,
Mm. Oh yeah. There's a
different
lot of
sects or different
cooperation.
denominations all kind of just still have
Mhm.
that, and it's actually a part of the just routine. That's kind of cool. Actually,
Right.
that is very
Yeah, and
cool.
we each have our unique traditions and way of doing
Hmm.
things, right? Like
Hmm.
different unique ways of chanting Shoshinge, for example.
Hmm.
But at the same time, we have, what did it say? Unity in diversity or something like that.
Yeah,
We have um we all cooperate and coordinate to come to a better understanding of Jodo Shinshu, and also to promote Jodo Shinshu, as a true
yeah,
religion in the world. So yeah, it's a joyful business. It's very good. It's a great thing.
no, that is great. That is really, I didn't know that. That's yet another very positive thing that I've learned today about
Good.
Hanganji, that there's that broader exchange between the different
Mm,
denominations. So that's good. That's very good
yeah.
to
Well, it's the true spirit of Shinron and
yeah.
of Shakyamuni and of Buddhism generally and of Jodo Shinshu in particular, I would say. I
So
mean,
yeah,
there is no broader reality than the reality of the primal vow, right? I mean,
yeah.
this is
Eh,
it's as
So
big as it gets.
no, exactly. No, yeah, no, true, very true. It's that's um oh man, there's so much I could say, but we've gone now for
Hmm. We can go for another 10 minutes or so
10 minutes.
if
Okay.
you
Okay.
would like. I'm not
Yeah, no,
in
we
a
usually do,
particular
but
hurry, so yeah.
okay, good. So the yeah, that is the um so anyway, coming back to that,
Mm,
the passage you read,
hmm.
it seemed like there was something you were going to draw out, you were going to say about that last passage that you read related
Mm.
to this. And I just want to
Which
see if
one
you
was
had
that? The
the one that ends with, becoming our none other than our
Oh yeah,
Holy
yeah, yeah.
Spouse,
Yeah, I think I said everything I wanted to say. I had to
about
say
that.
about that one. Just
Okay.
the most important, the pivotal thing is Shinjin, right? And
Yes.
the whether a person has truly settled Shinjin or
Yeah.
not, and
Yeah.
the people who have truly realized true and real Shinjin. That's important. Shinron always says Shinjitsu Shinjin,
Yep.
meaning the true and real Shinjin.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
if you realize the true and real Shinjin, then that is, you're not going to go, um, you know, you're not going to give that up for something else,
No.
because that is I mean, there is nothing else to compare with
Yeah,
true and real Shinjin.
exactly.
So that a person who has truly realized the true and real Shinjin will not, go hopping from one thing to the next. But people who are still in that stage, they can often tend
Well,
to come and go.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that is part of it. That
Mm,
because
mm,
to me, this is one of the reasons I can see just from my
hmm
own self, but I think other people as well, it applies to, because there's such emphasis on Shinjin,
mm,
and it is a thing of it needs to arise, you know,
right.
um, and
And not by your own design, right?
not by one's own design. So people kind
Mm,
of just get to the point, well, you know, um, this isn't going to happen, and I'm not
yeah,
motivated enough to stick around to. Do you see what I mean? I
right.
mean, I felt that, I've
Oh, yeah,
experienced that
yeah.
myself. I still do. I still, part of me still, is
Mm,
has
yeah.
that sense of, it seems it's, I'd say most of the times it seems like it seems so remote that could be. Do you know what I
Mm,
mean? That I could,
yeah.
that would be
Or
something
abstract.
more
It often
abstract,
seems,
or
yeah.
yeah, or or possible. There's there's part of me that still is that, goes, gets to that point where I think,
Hmm
I don't think this is gonna happen. you know, um, you know what I mean? I just don't,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and so I can understand it. I do understand, from my own experience. I understand the coming and
Mm,
going. Um,
right.
uh, uh, yeah. So
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I totally agree, in fact. I think that what sometimes happens is we isolate Shinji from the context
mhm.
of how of what Shinjin is, right?
Yeah,
Um, and we start to talk about it as if it was a thing, an object, something
yeah,
to be gotten, to be
grasped,
tracked
be,
down and
yeah,
gotten like a trophy or something. And that's a problem because um, when we look at what the teaching says, Shinra talks about Shinjin arising through the compassionate upaya, the skillful means of Amida Buddha and Shakyamuni Buddha. He talks about the light
mhm.
being the mother of Shinjin, and the name being the father of Shinjin. He talks about um, so without light and name, there's no Shinjin,
Yeah,
right? Right.
yep,
So
yep,
there's a relation. Shinjin is relational to the working of light, of the name, of the vow power. Shinran says that um, the true and real Shinjin arises through the working of the power of the vow. Um, and so that, when you see it like that, all of a sudden it's something complete. We're talking about something completely different.
yeah,
We're now
yeah, yeah,
talking about, you know, a whole new vista is opening up on Shakyamuni, on Buddhism, on going back to Dharmakara. And I did want to say, last episode of Liturgical Listening, we were going over the passage in Sambutsuge where Hozo Bosatsu Dharmakara is vowing to liberate all beings and to bring all beings to enlightenment, and that is the Bodhi mind, right?
Yeah.
In Buddhism, in Mahayana Buddhism, what we call the Bodhi mind.
Yeah.
And
yes.
And Shinron says that Shinjin is the Bodhi mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
it's
that the Bodhi mind of Dharmakara is reaching us through the name, through his name as Amida Buddha. And that one and the same Bodhi mind is our Shinjin. So let that sink in.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like, I think at least people don't, they also, the aspect of that it's, I mean, that is a huge, those are huge things, but
right.
If you're a Buddhist, one of the things I think it's important to see is that Shinjin is the Buddha mind. The reason it's called true and real is because it actually is nirvana, is the Dharmakaya, is the sunyata, is Buddha nature, is realized Buddha nature, is, and that's kind of no different in that sense. It's pointing to the same thing that all Buddhism points to. Do you see what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yes.
So like,
absolutely.
In one sense, it is an incredible, inconceivable, mind-blowing thing. The idea of the bamboo and the Buddha mind being one, but separate until they, die and go to Pure Land. But like, but that, but the other side of it is for a Buddhist, it should just, that's the goal of Buddhism anyway. see
right.
What I mean?
There aren't.
It's not like it's this hugely different concept than.
Yeah.
Exactly. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. It is Buddhism, in fact, and there aren't two nirvanas. There is no two in nirvana. I mean,
so in that sense,
Shinron talks about the ocean of oneness, right? So there is one true reality of nirvana, of shunyata, of the Dharma body, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that, in that sense, I just think sometimes I think that, I think isn't emphasized enough. Sometimes when the teaching is presented, I think the writings do it. You get it from the the actual writings of Shinran and Renya, you get that. Yeah. But when it's talked about or transmitted, sometimes I think, do you know what I mean? It doesn't always.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It doesn't always, that's, this is Buddhism. I mean, I've kind of come to a conclusion that, how I say about the reverse polarity thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually what was reversed engineered, like the original Buddhism is Amida Buddha's Buddhism. Is the original Buddha's, and that being the original Buddha, of limitless, inconceivable, incalculable time. And that Buddha, that Buddhism was reverse engineered into self-power Buddhism.
Yes. That is
to make provision
with Shinron's point of view, actually.
Yeah,
or
I think exactly. That's when I say I came to the conclusion. I've gleaned that from the teachings. Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
And it's kind of gelled in my mind that that is original Buddhism, is Amida Buddha's Buddhism, and the self-power Buddhism is the reverse engineering of that to make provision for other, beings to be able to approach it, with certain beings that have certain karmic causes and conditions. That's the way for them to be able to approach the teaching,
Yeah.
You give them
Yeah,
some.
but I totally agree with you that there are major deficiencies in the way Shinshu is being promulgated, let's say,
Yeah.
in many cases. And one thing is like, saying that Shinjin is simple faith.
Yeah. Yeah.
That you might be better off saying that it is the Bodhi mind of
Yeah.
Dharmakara. People's ears tend to, pick up when they hear that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, entrusting, of course, is an essential and important part of what Shinjin is, no doubt about it. And in particular, Shinran, says that Shinjin is the mind that is free from doubt.
Yeah.
And that is what Shinjin is. So, but the way the words we use that aren't words, in many cases, are not words that Shinran uses. Maybe we need to rethink those particular expressions and terminologies. And that's why I always think that the decision made by the committee to transliterate rather than translate Shinjin was the correct one, because there is so much depth of meaning and in so much importance in what Shinjin means and what Shinjin is, and the way Shinjin is relational to, in other words, it can't be isolated from the light and the name and Amida's working. So very, very important. I mean, I could go on, but you get the idea. It's
all at once.
Unfortunately, yeah. And
it's all those things all at once.
Right. Exactly. It's not exactly. It's many things at once. But the problem is with words is, they become stale over time with much reuse. And Shinjin has also become that, where now it's used in a kind of dry and intellectual academic way that sort of isolates it from those, like when Shinran says that there is no Shinjin apart from the name, that's a very important doctrine in Jodo Shinshu, right? We could certainly talk about that in a future episode too. It would be an interesting discussion.
Yeah. And just all that alone, how the name, the vow, the Buddha mind, do you know what I mean? It's all the same thing. It's all the
right.
Yeah.
And Shinjin is the mind
and the Pure Land,
free from
Pure
doubt.
Land itself.
Yeah. And Shinjin is the mind that is free from doubt because it is the Bodhi mind, because it is or the Bodaishin, because it is Amida's mind. That is why it is the mind that is free from doubt. So, these are just, it's so exciting to discuss these topics. But, if we limit ourselves with our terminology, we end up,
exactly
in a very narrow and confined space, which is not what Shinshu is about,
And Shinran did use a lot of different words.
Oh yeah,
he used a lot of different words to explain the same, but it was very he referred to it as a lot of different things.
Yeah. And he also quotes from the Nirvana Sutra where Shakyamuni says, I use different words that have the same meaning. Buddha, Dharma, Sangha, refuge, all of these words, and you read the words from a from one perspective, it's like, wow, these mean different things. But Shakyamuni is saying, no, they actually have the same meaning. It's like, whoa. Now, of course, the Nirvana Sutra is, a sutra that's for people with advanced capabilities on the path ultimately. But Shinran actually quotes from the Nirvana Sutra, I believe, more than any other sutra in Kogyo Shinshu. There's a lot of the Nirvana Sutra in Kogyo Shinshu.
And
very interesting.
The Nirvana Sutra, was that kind of his last one before he
yes, it's of course the Mahayana,
his quote unquote last one, I should say, before his Parinirvana.
Right. It is of course the Mahayana Mahaparinirvana Sutra, which is a very, very extensive what's called Vaipulya Sutra, and not the Agama or Pali Tripitaka much shorter version. But in the I think in the Tendai classification, it was considered, along with the Lotus Sutra, to be the culminating teaching
thing. That was their way that they that was how the ZE I think was the first one to kind of classify it in that way. Five periods. 5 periods, I think. But doesn't Jodo Shinshu kind of have its periods, kind of how it looks at the periods of the Dharma, or no? Does it have a similar thing?
No, actually, not really, because in Jodo Shinshu we only have the 3 Pure Land Sutras.
Yeah, and that whenever that was given, so we don't. There wasn't any kind of that when that was given. It's just this is no matter when it was given. This is the important teaching for us in this age.
Right. Although we have discussed how the Meditation Sutra, in particular, narratively, is actually taking place directly after Shakyamuni preached the Lotus Sutra.
Yeah.
That is the only
directly after, or was it during? That was during. I thought it was like kind of during at the same time.
Traditionally it's said to be he was preaching the Lotus Sutra on Mount the Vulture Peak, and then he left preaching that sutra to attend to the crises in
I thought he basically just kind of he kind of used his Buddha powers and made another kind of any manifestation of himself to give the
the sutra says that he went through the year, so I think he actually went himself and then returned to Vulture Peak.
Okay, got you.
Yeah, but I don't know that the Lotus Sutra makes any mention of that. I don't believe it does.
No,
it would be surprising if it did, given Nichiren's interpretation.
Yeah, true. But there is that connect. There's definitely that connection with the.
We in the Jodo Shinshu, the Pure Land side of things, have always maintained that connection between the Lotus Sutra and the Meditation Sutra. But the smaller sutra and the larger sutra are not. There isn't any really identifying time frame other than. It is, of course, the same Pure Land teaching. So it can be, I guess, assumed to be, and there is, I should say, there is a lot more to be said about the relationship between the 3 Pure Land Sutras from both Honen Shonin and Shinran Shonin. And, for example, that the larger sutra is the sort of the truth as it is being preached to bodhisattvas, high advanced practitioners. And then the meditation sutra is that same truth being taught to Queen Videhi, who is a common unenlightened person, right? So there's a lot of important sort of soteriological teachings or doctrine regarding those aspects of the three sutras. But
we should get into that at some point. I think.
Yeah, we should. I'll have to dig up my old
do some episodes.
My old textbooks.
Do some episodes on that. Maybe its own series, maybe on that one. But yeah, that would be. It's anyway. I just there's a lot about the Lotus Sutra that I think kind of points to. Well, all sutras point to each other, really, and point. Do you know what I mean? Point. You can see the truth they're pointing to.
Right.
But there's a lot in the Lotus Sutra that you're like, oh yeah, that's kind of talking about, Amida Buddha, is the original Buddha. You know what I mean? And do you know what I mean? There's a lot of things like, if you saw it through, if you can kind of see it through pure, Jodo Shinshu eyes, you can. Do you know what I mean? You can look at the Lotus Sutra.
Well,
Jodo Shinshu eyes.
Shonin, as I think we discussed in some previous episode, basically said that the Jodo Shinshu teaching and the Lotus Sutra are the same in essence.
In essence, yeah, so that made sense.
They're essentially the same teaching, but they're being given to different audiences, as it were.
Yeah. That rang when you said that really rang true. That was one of our early sessions where because I had brought up
I believe so, because you were asking
things
about the Lotus Sutra in regard to Jodo Shinshu.
And it just that does make a lot of sense.
Because the Lotus Sutra is the teaching of the one vehicle, right?
Yeah.
And so, and Jodo Shinshu is also, the teaching of the one vehicle. So, as Shinran makes very clear, so in that sense, they are, the same essential, teaching.
And there's that question in the self-referential aspect of the Lotus Sutra, which is kind of unusual, where it says this sutra. If people embrace this sutra, is it
right? Yeah,
you could think of it in a kind of subtle way that, well, it's not. He's not referring to this sutra. Do you know what I mean? Because do you see what I'm saying? What is he referring to a different sutra, or is it? Do you see what I mean? I don't know. Anyway, could the sutra he was referring to be, the Pure Land Sutras? Anyway.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Just the way it's self-referential. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, but Mahayana sutras often are self-referential. I believe even the larger sutra also, and
at some point,
the smaller sutra. Yeah, at some point.
Usually, true. That's true. That's true.
Usually they end up where Shakyamuni refers to the sutra itself and then gives what the title is, right?
Yeah. True. True.
But
it's a bundle of teachings. So
exactly.
Right. So it's not that unusual to refer to one's own bundle of teachings, I guess. So.
Exactly.
In my lecture today, if you like,
right.
As the Buddha, used that same technique, So
exactly.
Anyway.
So did that? We did.
Yeah, I think we kind of veered into various topics from that. Yeah, there's a lot in there that there's a lot of different threads that came out of that discussion, which was interesting, I thought.
Yeah, it was good discussion. I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah.
But hopefully that does address your initial question,
I
at
think
least
so.
to some
Yeah,
degree.
yeah,
I
it
think,
does. It does. It does. One other thing I wanted to say about coming back to true Shin Buddhism. Just another note on that is there was a point after Paul had passed away
yeah,
that I noticed maybe slightly before that, because he wasn't as involved. He couldn't be as involved because of his health situation,
right, yeah.
And but especially after he passed, that there was a very different change in the tone or the way that things were done on that that email group. It became kind of much more almost like a happy clappy, Jodo happy clappy Jodo Shinshu. You've heard of happy clappy Christianity or clappyanity. That that happens in some denominations. Yeah, so that's kind of what it. And I was like, it just was all like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Kind
of.
A
lot of times that is kind of people are trying to drown out
their own doubts,
perhaps, and their own issues, which unfortunately then go unaddressed because of all the happy clapping.
Yep, exactly.
But yeah, that psychology of religion in in Buddhism as well as in Christianity and every religion, right?
Yeah, exactly. It is all there. So, well, listen, thank you very much appreciated.
My pleasure as always.
Thank you for meandering through the topics with me that arose out of this session. That's interesting that it started there, and there's a lot of different aspects of that. Or things that you gave, just kind of gave rise to thinking about. So, yes,
well, it's all interconnected. It's really hard to just cut one thing out from the whole cloth.
Exactly. So let me see if we can just go on camera to say.
Oh yeah, I'll see. Okay.
Yeah. So excellent. Good discussion. I can't wait to listen to it later. I always get more out of it when I listen to it again later on. Oh yeah, that's true. No key off other things.
Yeah.
So there are sometimes I go,
and hopefully more questions, right?
yeah, exactly. So I think that's another thing too. People, express that, difficult. So all your questions and the responses or answers you get lead to other questions. I think people just get tired. People just are like, oh no, that's going to make me think of another question. There's just time. That's tough. I can't lead to more. So I can see that. I can see other people get. Because I did. That's one thing. That's one reason.
Well, one step at a time.
Yeah, I can't. Because
lots of breathing. There's no hurry, right?
No, exactly. But that's another aspect I can see where people would, just the nature of the path, humans being bamboos, you just get to, okay, I can't think about this, it's just, you know what I mean? I can't try to explain this to get, because, a lot of times the questions you have wind up being really, there's a whole array of things that you got to explain to get to how you got even to that question, and you're like, oh, I can't. Do you know what I mean? So
we want quick
human
answers.
Nature things.
We want quick answers, quick and easy answers.
Yeah.
And there are no quick and easy answers.
In authentic Jodo Shinshu, no. We're not,
Yeah.
that's not why we're here. That's another, it's almost like Jodo Shinshu, the authentic Jodo Shinshu is kind of like, it's like the anti-religion almost. It's not like an anti-hero,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's
it really
it's like a not
is.
really anti-religion as it's against religion, but just that
Yeah, yeah,
it's like the punk, you know, it's like the, I don't know, you know what I'm
yeah,
saying? It's
I
not
know.
really the, this
Yeah,
is not, this
like
is
an
not,
anti-hero kind of.
yeah, these are not the religions you're looking for. Yeah, it's a different thing. We're not going to give you quick answers. We're not going to give you,
Mm,
you know, we're not going to give you easy answers.
yeah,
We're not going to give you a just, you know, you have to go through it. You have to speak up,
mm,
you know.
yeah.
And
And an
listen.
answer, you know, you hear it once, you're like, oh, okay, and that's it, right? But what we are after, or what we should be after, is understanding, right? And the understanding that comes from the wisdom of the Buddha, that's
Yeah.
a whole nother thing to just quick answer, you know,
Yeah.
one answer. It's
Yeah.
a process of, you know,
Unfolding.
true understanding, right?
Yeah.
You know?
And that's Shinjin too. What you just said.
Yeah.
The wisdom of the Buddha. Anyway. All right. Well, listen, thank you again. I could go on, but yeah. I'm mindful of the time there, and you probably want to get on with
you're
your evening.
welcome. Yeah. Great
So,
discussion.
yeah, very good discussion. And we'll talk to you next time. We good for next weekend, or so much as you know? Are you okay for next week? Can you hear me? All right. If you can't, we'll talk again. Take care.
All
Bye
right.
now.
Take care. Namo Amida Butsu.